Hi guys, Nitemba Kula here. Thank you for joining and watching this episode, whether it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, or any other platform. So today we have a guest that my EHS community had requested for via our LinkedIn poll, where you guys had requested us to bring someone who specializes in both ISO 14001 and ISO 45001. So today our guest is Portia Ngakane, who is an expert in implementing these two ISO standards. Stay tuned. Hope you enjoy. So Portia, from your experience, what are some of the difficulties that organizations face when implementing and maintaining ISO 14000? And how can they overcome these challenges?
Yeah, that's another good question. Let's start with implementation. I always say to HSE professionals, nothing beats communication. We are the big talkers. And if you cannot communicate, then you're going to have a problem. Because when we implement, we are introducing something new. And people resist change naturally. Now you want them to be standardized, you want procedures, you want checklists, you want this, people resist that. Once management has made a decision to implement, they've spoken to the HSE department to say, okay, we are ready, you've sold the idea to us, we are going for this implementation. Communication. The first thing is the HSE person or department familiar with the subject. You have to understand what you are implementing. And I know companies take shortcuts. They just give it to the HSE department. You have no formal training. You don't understand. And they think just because you are in HSE, you understand ISO. No, ISO is a different ball altogether. Yes, you could have. It helps if you know the subject, if you understand occupational health and safety. Then it's not going to be that difficult for you to understand ISO 45001 because you already have an idea of the subject. So I'm big on training. People must be trained to implement ISO management system. There is awareness training, there is implementation training. You must understand what you are doing because there is a requirement in those standards that we don't ordinarily implement, but that we implement because we're going for the ISO certification. Training is big. And then once you've got the training, communicate from top management. They need to understand what you are doing and why you are doing what you are doing. I remember when I was my first time implementing, it was then OSHA's 18001. I went with my standard to management and I read them the clauses, duties of the employer in the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I read that to the MD first. I read. And then I said, you want OSHA's 18001 implemented? And he said, yes. And I said, do you understand the implications? And he said, yes. And I said, no, I'm not convinced. I need you and your team, your management team, to attend a one-day training to understand your legal liability when we are now implementing this ISO, this OSHA's 18001. It was OSHA's then, now it's ISO 45001. So that they understand their responsibilities and accountability. I don't want them to disturb me once I've started. And then no, we can't do this. No. They need to understand what they are getting themselves in. Legal liability is a big one for top management. They must understand that. If top management does not understand, the whole thing is going to fail. I can tell you that now. If top management doesn't understand and they don't buy into it, forget about implementing. it's not going to work. So then they do their training, then they have an idea of, okay, this is why Portia wanted us to do this training. Okay, Portia, we've done the training, perfect. And then I continue with my implementation. HSE professionals, you must be a communicator. You must be. If you are an introvert, you're going to struggle, because those people are going to resist whatever new things you are coming with. You must be able to influence. You must be an influencer. You must be an influencer. You must talk to your people. And you must be able to talk from top to bottom. You must be able to talk with top guys. You must be able to talk with the cleaner. And you must be able to convince them the same way. So communication is huge, huge. And then train them internally. You know, these safety talks, I even ended up introducing environmental talks. I ended up introducing quality talks. Who said it can only be safety talks? You can talk about the environment. You can talk about quality. Talk about the subject that you are implementing. And as you implement, I find that when you train the people, when you explain to the people, they buy into what you are doing. If they don't understand, they're not going to buy into it. You can be navy on your face. They will not do it. And unfortunately, they play a big part in this ISO system. So they have to understand. If you go to procurement and you do a clause on purchasing, you go and sit with, oh, that's another thing. You cannot, please guys, community, I hope you are hearing me. You cannot implement an ISO management system in the boardroom. Sitting in the boardroom and writing those procedures, you are setting yourself up for failure. You have to work with the people. When you do purchasing, you go and sit with the purchasing department. You make an appointment, you go sit with them, you go through their process, you go through, how do we handle this? How do we handle it? Remember, it's their process. Where now you are helping them ISOize the process. They've been buying and outsourcing for years. Now you are helping them formalize their procedure by documenting it and by ISOizing it as required by the ISO standard. It's not your process. You cannot sit in the boardroom and write a process. I don't know how many times I can stress that, because we find consultants doing that. It is so wrong. And when we come to audit, we can see that people know nothing about this. Somebody quoted them, they paid 60,000. Somebody sat somewhere in the boardroom, wrote all procedures, and then sent the file to the organization. You can't do that. Yeah, companies do that. People do that, and it's us, consultants, unfortunately, who do that. We coach you, we say, ISO is easy. I'll write the procedures, I'll give you the file. When they come to audit, you just show them this file. Disaster. When we come to audit, disaster. Disaster. You fail. Dismally, you fail. So involve the people. When you are writing, I don't know, what procedure, an operations procedure, go to the floor. There's a lot of procedures on the floor. Whatever procedure you are writing, the people must tell you what they are doing. And then when now you just ISOize it, I always say that. When now you put it on a document, you give it a document name, document number, revision, you make it nice for ISO. But the content is what is being done on the floor. The content is not yours. When you listen to them and you ask them, because now you've done ISO, so you know the questions to look out for. Then you say, so what happens if this happens? Oh, yeah, Sis Portia, yeah, there we do this and this and that. And then they carry on, they tell you, you're making your notes, they tell you, you're making your notes. And then you say, I think we missed a step here. So if here for an example, if there's a lockout, for an example. So if the crane is locked out, because Bona, they'll say, yeah, if there's a problem with the crane, we lock it out and then nobody can use the crane. That's operation, right? And then Mina, I should say, okay, so then how does the transportation of goods take place now that the crane has been locked out? You know? So you guide them when as an ISO person to say, I also need to document what happens when the overhead crane has been locked out, how long it can be locked out for, who do we contact to come and check what is wrong with the crane, and all those things. So you must speak to the people. That is so, so important. And let me tell you, community, the guys on the floor, you know, there's always, I don't know where we get this thing, but it has always been there. And wherever I've worked, they know I'm so much against it. There's always this thing about office and workshop. I don't know why we have that thing. Office people think they are better than the people in the workshop or in the factory because the people in the factory are wearing PPE and office people are wearing high heels, and you know they'll always be the thing. I have no clue why it is. So already you are an HSE person coming from the office. So there's already that with them. But let me tell you, when you give these guys a platform, when they tell you about what they do, it is such a good feeling to them. They feel proud that somebody appreciates what they do. So give them the platform. Let them explain to you. And if you don't understand, tell them, hey, I don't understand here. Can you just repeat that again? Why did we have to put a guard here on this machine? They feel very good explaining because they know that they are looked down on. So give them that platform. It makes them feel very good, and immediately they will buy in. They will buy into your ISO system. So allow the guys to express themselves. When I remember, even now for my clients, when there's been a non-conformance, there was a problem with production, I go to the team. Guys, we had a NCR from customer X. What happened? Now we are doing our root cause. We follow step by step. And those guys are very knowledgeable. The people on the floor are very, very knowledgeable. I don't know why people take them, for granted. Those people are very, very, they know their machines, they know their processes, and they know what to do. So give them that platform when you are moving into the ISO space. Allow them to tell you what they do. When I lead them here and there, if you feel they've missed something, raise it with, okay, so when we've locked down the crane, then what happened? Because now we need to work. Work needs to continue. So how do you continue moving your materials from here to here if the overhead crane is locked? I said, Portia, we use a forklift, or we make sure that this and this, or, they'll tell you what they do. You don't know because when you're sitting in your office, so allow them to tell you. Never write a process in your office or in the boardroom. Never. You are setting yourself up for failure. The people you are writing that process for will not follow that process because they did not contribute. You might have written something that you think they do, and then it gets to them and they say, oh, we don't do it like this, Tina. We do here, and then from here it moves to here, and then from here it moves to here. So they must tell you what you need to write. And then when you just isorize it. But the content is there. When you've just given it, you've just controlled it as per the requirement of creating and updating a document, clause 7. So please give the guys the space. And the same applies to management, top management. That's why I read that. I said, Mr. MD, you want to implement, okay, the Act says 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, duties of the employer, blah, 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 blah. Then we went to 16. You are the 16 one. You have to appoint the 16 two, but you can't transfer your accountability. You are still accountable and all those things. Everyone in the organization, once you start implementing, everybody needs to buy into that. From security. If you have a security, they have to understand. In case of emergency, when we do the drills, your MSDS file, all those things, so you sit down with them and you explain to them, okay, I'm going to keep this one file here. The other one is in operation. This one I'm keeping here. In case there is a fire in the workshop, then we still have access to our MSDS in the security office. You are the first point of call. When the fire people come, you will be the first ones to attend to them. Please make sure that they have access to this file so that they can see what chemicals we have in the workshop. Those are the communications you have with these people. In case of emergency, security, when we evacuate or when there's an emergency and there's evacuation, security, you are not allowed to speak to the media. Only the MD or the appointed person can speak to the media. When now you just refer them to the appointed person. Security, in case of emergency, here are the emergency number. Here is a letter of standing. Do you understand why we are making this letter of good standing available to you as security? I find that when we educate people, they buy into the system. And we don't come with that authority that, hey, you must do this, you must do this. No, we are setting us. And remember, when they fail, they don't fail, you fail. So you need to make sure that they buy into your system. And the best way for me, and it has worked since I started ISO, communication, communication, communication. We are talkers. Talk to the people. Make the people open to come to you and say, hey, Sis Portia, there is a problem here. Hey, Sis Portia, make them comfortable to come to you and talk to you. Make your office an open door policy that anyone can come with their oily overalls. Mina, I never minded. They would come with their oily overalls, sit on the chest. I did not mind. I would actually call them into my office and say, no, let's go to, because I wanted to make them comfortable, you know. So it's the small thing. Be visible on the floor. Visibility, management by visibility. Even the MD must be visible on the floor. And I mean, I used to tell them, I would go to him and say, come, let's take a walk. And then we walk around the workshop and, you know, we work, oh, hey, how's it? Is everyone okay? Is everything sharp? Until they got used to it. Oh, okay, Portia now and again comes with the MD, you know. And when you walk with that MD, make sure the MD is wearing the full PPE. Make sure he is not excluded. He can't cover his hair if it's food. He can't wear his goggles. No, he must wear the same PPE everybody wears. He's wearing safety shoes, or if he's not wearing safety shoes, he's wearing closed shoes, and he only keeps to the walk area. He can't access production if he's not wearing safety shoes. The same not laws, but the same safety requirements that apply to them must apply to the MD, and they must see that. So if the MD comes there with a tie, I remember we had a new MD some years back. Well, he would go to the workshop with a tie and a white shirt, and I was like, guy, we don't do it like that here. Here, when we go to the workshop, we are part of them. Don't intimidate my guy, please. I rely on these people for my ISO system. These guys can mess up our ISO system. Don't. Why are you not doing this? No. Respect the guy. That's another thing. Respect. I'm big on respect. On the floor, in the workshops, you are working with somebody's dad. You are working with somebody's granddad. You are working with somebody's husband. You are working with somebody's wife. You are working with somebody who is respected where he comes from. Who are you, Mr. HSE, to come and disrespect that person just because you are a SHEQ manager? No. Respect, respect, respect. And if you respect those guys, they respect you back, and they make sure they are your eyes and ears when you are not there. So I built that relationship with the guys to be comfortable. Mina, I would sit with my guys, community. I would sit with my guys in the office for lunch, Petty's captain, and eat lunch with them. When I see them sitting outside the grass there by the garden, me, I'm there with them by the garden. I sit down with my captain. Because I wanted to be part of them. I didn't want them to look at me as a manager, yasema officine, you know. So those relationships are very important. And even the auditors would pick it up when they audited us. With our Portia, you've got your people. Because they were there for me, you know. When it was operations, I would just stand and fold my hands. And I used to tell them, "Good, me guys, I can't answer operations. The auditor will ask you, you answer. Me now, I'll just be standing on the side." And I used to do that. And they knew what I wanted us to pass the audit. So they would make sure that they were doing the right thing all the time. The checklists were available. Their manuals were available. Everything that needed to be there, the drawings were there. Everything that was supposed to be there was there. So create that relationship with the people. Same in the offices. Sit down with the department. Don't write their procedures. Don't assume what they do. Ask them what they do. And then when you take that, you isorize it, you write a process, and you go back to them. You send the process to them. You go back to them. Is the process okay? Is this what we are doing? Or do we need to change anything? Make them comfortable and be open with them. Then you will implement with ease. Once you do that, the process will be so easy. So communication, and more communication. That's big on implementation. So what makes system fail? I was talking now to implementation. Now you've implemented, communication still continues. Sometimes I would join their safety talks just for fun, you know. I see stores standing there in a group, they're doing a safety talk. I would just go there and stand, and the health and safety rep is doing the safety talk. I would just go there and stand and say nothing. Just for me to be part of it, you know. You are bringing them closer to you. Now, once you've implemented, the problem with maintenance is the buying in, that's a problem, and the communication. If people do not buy into your system, you will not be able to maintain. How do they buy in? You talk to them. You explain to them. Don't take for granted that they understand. No. You go to the quarantine area, and then you call one of them from a machine. Why is this item quarantined? No, Sis Portia, it's recorded. We have a quarantine register. Why is this item quarantined? I know it was when we machined, it undersized, when we measured. And it makes him feel good to tell me that when we measured, it was undersized. So we put it here for the engineers to decide whether it's fit for use or we need to scrap it or whatever decision. And I'm like, hi, Sis Portia, it's recorded. Here's the register. I put it in here on the 12th of August. And now it's up to the engineers to make a decision what we do with this item. Small thing. You are making your people comfortable with you. You are making people not hide things. You are making people not to be scared, which they have undercut and there's a problem. No, we make mistakes. We are human, you know. Once you've undercut and you realize that that part is not going to work, quarantine it. Take it to the quarantine area, record it in the quarantine register, and the Friday they go to the quarantine area to check what is parked there. And then they also speak to the production people. So maintenance, if people haven't bought into the system, you will not maintain the system. Because you are not everything. When now you are HSE, the other people are feeding your system. So if you don't talk to them, if they're not comfortable with you, if they hide things, if somebody gets injured and they don't report, if something wrong happens and they don't report, your system will collapse. So also be there. Don't just leave it to them. I'm a big believer in being visible, even with my client. If I have a 9 o'clock appointment and it's a client I've had for years, I come in at 8 and I walk around the workshop. Kunjani? Baraithe ekhaya. You know, like I said earlier, you're dealing with families here. So yeah, be visible, talk to the people, make the people comfortable with you, be open, make the people comfortable to come and tell you things that you might not have known. Then in that way, then you can maintain it. And make sure in maintenance, make sure you follow up. When you audit, funding must be closed. Root cause. What was the root cause of this? I used to go to the floor, especially when we had a customer complaint, because we had huge customers. Your Mercedes-Benz, your what, we're doing parts for them. So when we got a complaint from Mercedes-Benz, I would go to that department and say, hey, Buffett, we got a complaint. What went wrong? They will tell me what. But they would argue amongst themselves. And I would just stand there and laugh. No, you look at the job card. Look at the job card. You didn't sign. Now it's amongst themselves. So now, Bona on their own, they are realizing the problem. So involve the guys. Let them be part of the system. Don't want to be just there and maintaining the system on your own. You can't maintain operations. Operations is the floor. So yeah, give the guys that space and make them comfortable and make them understand that they are part of the system. They are a very big part of the system. Without them, you can't maintain the system.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, because one of my colleagues likes to say, he uses the Alex and Sentin analogy that, oh, the people from Sentin are coming to visit Alex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He says it jokingly, but the message comes across that, oh, the big guns are now here, which is why, as you correctly said, as EHS, it's important for us to break that barrier. Because as soon as, yes, we are part of management, but when you, as an EHS person, when you act as normally as how management acts, and you are not close to your people, you won't get the required information if you had not built the relationship with the guys and they felt comfortable in coming to you and telling you that, hey, we have this problem, which might potentially cause an injury on site or damage to property or whatever. So we do, as EHS professionals, need to build a relationship with our employees and not only go to the shop floor when we go to look for near misses. You actually go to the floor also to have a chat, catch up. How are you? I heard you are sick. I saw the doctor saying you are now fit to come back to work. How are you coping? How was physio? Just building a relationship. Yes, you don't need to know the person's entire life story. Just to have a cordial relationship and not being Alex and the Sentin situation.
And it's everywhere. Hey? It's everywhere. I've worked internationally. Even internationally, there is the workshop and there is the offices. Like, I would have expected something different here, but no, the offices are Sentin, the workshop is Alex. I like that. I'm stealing that Sentin, Alex.
So, in your now and professional opinion, what is the most important personality trait or strengths someone needs to succeed as an EHS professional?
Okay. Firstly, you must be the subject matter expert. If you are in health and safety, then you should have done some training on health and safety. If you are in environmental, then you should have done some training on environmental. The nice thing here is most of the training in EHS, we get practically, Theory is very limited. Theory, you read, you write at UNISA, and that's it. Most of the practice comes when you are in the field. So, yeah, be a subject matter expert and also understand the business that you are in when you are in EHS or in environmental. I come from an engineering background. And I always used to ask the guys on the floor, so what is this? Why are we doing this? What do we call this? Understand what they do, you know? Also, that gives them that, oh, yeah, Sis Portia doesn't know this, you know? And it makes them feel proud to be explaining to me from Sentin what they are doing, you know? So allow yourself, learn the business that you are in, because the systems are based on the business. I'm not saying be an expert in the business, but know a little thing, you know, your vineyards, your calibration, simple things, but just ask the guys on the floor. Because then once you understand that, then I nearly said a wrong word. Then they can't say wrong things when you are auditing them. You know, you need to understand a little bit of the business. Because especially when you audit the floor operation, you are auditing their activities. So have some understanding of what they are doing there. When they produce this coupler, they use the chemicals, they use this, they join this and this. If you look at the drawings, this drawing means 1, 2. Oh, okay. Don't be scared to ask the guys. They know what they're doing. Be open to learning, not only about OHS or environmental, but also the technical side of things. Because when the certification body sends auditors, they send auditors with that code, with that technical code, so that they ask the right questions and they look at the right things, especially on the operational side of things. So also learn a little bit of the business. And then another big one for me is communication skills. You have to communicate. You have to be comfortable to communicate at the top level. You have to be comfortable to communicate at the lowest level. You must be a good communicator. You must have good interpersonal skill, because environmental is the whole organization. It's not only the workshop. When you go to the offices and you tell them to separate their waste, to put their plastic in this bin, to put their paper in this bin, to put their cardboard in this bin, that's communication. And you must be able to explain to those people in the offices why you want them to separate the waste, you know, on the environmental side. Also on the health and safety side, it's not only, health and safety is not only about workshops and factories, offices also. So speak to the people in the offices as well. Do your safety talk this side and come back to the offices and do a safety talk in the offices. There is stairs, there is lifts, there is kitchen, there is hot water, there is corners of the table, there is paper cuts. There's a lot of safety talks you can do in the offices as well. This is another thing I find when I audit. The environmental and OHS side is just for the workshop. No, it's also for the offices. So involve the people in the offices as well. EHS is not only about the workshops. So have good interpersonal skills, be able to interact with people, good communication skills, know your environmental or OHS requirements, know the standards, know the requirements of the standards, understands the legal side of things, what is applicable to the business, because your MD will phone you and ask you, Portia, why this, that? You must be able to answer. Why does management have to go for this training? You must be able to answer the MD. So know what needs to be known, both on ISO, legal, and know the subject as well. Remember, we can have OHS without ISO. So no OHS outside the ISO. ISO is an addition, because ISO is when you want to get certified. But even if you are not certified, you still have to implement OHS in the business. So know your subject. Be clear in knowing your subject. And I repeat again, most of the knowledge we get when we are on the field, when we are on the shop floor. Most of my experience came from the practical side of things. Yes, you can write your theory and pass, but you still need to, enforce, implement what you have learned theoretically. So all be comfortable in the practical side of things and understand your processes. If you're a food manufacturer, understand you don't have to be a pro, but understand what's going on. When it's food dying, you understand a little bit there. And how do you understand? By talking to the guys, by asking the guys. When it's packaging, what is secondary packaging, primary packaging? Speak to the guys and ask them those things. They will explain those things to you. So also understand the context of the organization, what the organization does.
You can't emphasize that actually understanding a little bit of what goes on in each of the
Yes.
departments
Yes, yes. Otherwise, when you
goes a long
when you
way.
audit them,
Again,
they tell you all these wrong things.
yeah,
And so because you don't know, you just move on, and they're telling you something so wrong, you know. So you have to understand.
yeah.
You have to have some understanding of what's happening in the business.
This is Portia. So I want to give you a scenario. This is purely to help those in the community that might be watching or listening. How do they begin the journey of getting their organization both ISO certified? So you've got Uli Tembakula as the EHS manager for Kula Symbols and Projects, and I have full support from the directors to get both ISO 14 and 45,000 certified. Where do I begin? Please take us through the journey from the dream that we have as an organization, actually getting the certificate confirming that we are ISO 45 or 14,000 certified. Please take us through the process.
Firstly, it should be a great decision for you to get the company ISO certified. And it should be commendable that management has given you a go-ahead to get that certification. So what happens is, before you can get your ISO certificate, there is things you need to implement within the company. So you need to be familiar with the requirements of ISO 14001. Right. So the management has agreed that we can go ahead and start the process. You need to understand what ISO 14001 requires for you to be certified. Right. What most companies do, because they don't have internal capacity, they would call HWSETA to say, HWSETA, we would like to be ISO 14001 certified and ISO 45001 certified. How can you help us? The first thing I do, I visit the company. I need to see the site so that I have an idea of what needs to be done. So you must be familiar with the site, your activities. Remember that clause 4 again, context of the organization. What does the organization do? How many employees and all those things. And then we do a gap audit. So audit the company. A gap can also be taken as an internal audit. Audit the company to see where they are at that point before you even start implementing, so that you can identify where there's nothing at all, or where they have done a quarter, you need to help them with a 3/4, or they've done half, you need to help them with half. So conduct a gap audit. When you conduct that gap audit, make sure that you already understand the requirements of the ISO standard you want to implement, whether it's ISO 14001 or ISO 45001, so that you look for those requirements that are wanted by the standard. And make sure that when you audit, you check whether those requirements are conformed to, whether those things have been implemented or not. Once you get the gap audit report, then you know the gaps. Now you've identified the gap to say, here we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have this, before implementation. And I'm happy in your scenario that top management has given you the go-ahead. Top management is my first point of call. We sit and we train top management. 1 day training. Sometimes it's even 3-4 hours, because with them it's quick. What ISO 9000, ISO 14001 or ISO 45001 is all about, what they will benefit with this ISO and all those things. So we talk to top management first, and we communicate the leadership clause to top management so that they understand what is required of them from the ISO standard. Clause 5, we spoke about leadership earlier. We speak to management about that. Because if we don't have that, we're not going to be able to implement. Once you are done with top management, then we look at the processes, different processes within the organization, and we look at the standard. What does the standard require from logistics? What does the standard require from operations? What does the standard require from suppliers? So we go through each and every clause based on the activities of the organization. And then we sit with the individual department. We now ask them, so what do you do and how do you do it? They tell us, we do this, we do this, we do this, we're making notes, and then we ISOize their systems. We now write their procedures based on the requirements of the ISO management system. In health and safety, I would start with risk assessment. That's my first point of call with health and safety. And in 14,001, my first point of call is the aspect and impact. So based on your activities, what are your aspects in environmental and how do they impact the environment? We sit and we discuss that with the environmental department, if you have an environmental department, or anyone who would be appointed by management to be an environmental person. Then we would sit with that person, we walk around the factories, the buildings, everything, to make sure that we are taking note of everything that can have an environmental impact in the business. Same risk assessment. What could go wrong? What are your operations? What do you do? How do you do it? What machinery do you use? That's now for ISO 45001 risk assessment. What machinery do you use? Crane, vehicle, guarding. So we go through each and every process in operation to make sure that we cover all the risks that are applicable to the organization. And then once we've done that, because we implement, and don't let consultants fool you, community. Once you have implemented a system, you cannot audit yourself. You cannot audit your own work. So what HWSETA does, we have other companies that we work with. We will call on somebody who was not involved in the implementation to now come and conduct an internal audit to check that HWSETA has implemented what needs to be implemented according to the ISO 14001 standard and the ISO 45001 standard. And remember, during the implementation, we are talking to everybody in the company. We are asking questions. We are writing procedures. We are communicating the procedures that we have written. We sit with management. They do objectives and targets. We help them to develop objectives and targets. They write the EHS policy, environmental and health and safety policy. We help them because there's a few things they have to take into account that are required by the standard to be included in the policy. So we assist the company to write every document that is mandatory and those that we recommend that they on paper. So once we've done all that, it depends on the size of the organization. It can take 3 months minimum and more. A consultant that comes to you and says they can implement environmental or OHS in 2 months. No. Those people want money. Those people want to be paid quickly. You can, and we pick it up when we audit that you guys are not ready for an audit. I forgot to mention in the beginning, I also work with certification body and I work with SANA. So I'm everywhere. I know what SANAS requires, and SANAS accredit the certification bodies in South Africa. So SANAS are an accreditation body. So I know the requirement of accreditation. And then I also work with 4 or 5 certification bodies currently, your SABS, your BSI, your others. So I know because for SANAS, I audit the certification body for SANAS. So I go to the SABS and I audit the SABS. So I know the requirement of the highest body, which is SANAS locally, and then it moves down to the certification bodies, your BSIs, your SABS, and then it's organizations at the end. So I know what SANAS wants from SABS. I know what SABS wants from organizations, and I know what to look for when I implement for organizations. Right. Then once we are done with everything, then I call an external party who was not involved in implementing. They come and audit us. They give us the audit report. They give us our non-conformances. They give us our best practices. I go back to the organization. We sit back now in the management review. We now discuss the findings of the internal audit. So we implement, we document, we implement everything on the shop floor. We make sure that what we have written is what we are doing. We make sure the records are available. Companies forget records. There are mandatory records in the standards. Your training records must be available. If you calibrate, your calibration records must be available. Yeah, there's a whole lot of records that are mandatory. And the standard tells you that the organization shall retain. Once they say that, then you know that you must have that record. Okay. Then we get an external company, they audit us. And then the last step is to have the management review, where we sit with management, we discuss everything from implementation, we discuss the impacts and aspects in environmental, discuss the risks, we discuss competency, we discuss the support, how management is supporting the organization, operations, what we've done in operation, the whole standard. We discuss the whole standard and what we have done. We document those minutes, and then you are ready for certification by the certification body. And then we help you, because we've worked with a few certification body, we make recommendations, but at the end of the day, up to top management, which certification body they go for. We give you the pros and cons. I've worked with almost all our certification bodies through SANAT. So I'll give you the pros and cons. This one, there's a problem here. I wouldn't recommend this one. But at the end of the day, it's the organization that needs to make a decision. And then we make contact with the certification body. So when you get certified, there's 2 audits that you go through initially. Let's say, for an example, we go for the SABS, right? So after our management review, we contact sales at SABS. We would like to be certified for ISO 14001 and ISO 45001. They send you their intake forms where they get information. You fill in those forms, the size of the organization, number of employees, the context, what the organization does, the scope, where are you? Are you in Joburg only, or do you have branches in PE and Cape Town? They'll ask you all those questions. You fill in that form, you send it to them. The technical team that side does what they need to do, and then they determine on their side, okay, we can be ready. We have auditors available on this day to go and do the audit. Now, in the beginning, there is 2 types of audit. Before you get certified, you get audited twice. SABS comes in and conducts what we call a stage 1 audit. A stage 1 audit is when they come in and they only audit documentation, only. They don't walk about, they don't do operations, nothing. They sit with you in the boardroom or in the meeting room and they just do documentation. Can we see this? Can we see this? Can we see this? It depends on the size of the business. It can be 1 day, it can be 2 days, it can be 3 days. They have a formula that they use to calculate the number of days, right? Before they now come to do the actual audit, which is now the stage 2, where they now do the operational side of things. They audit your operations, they go to procurement, they ask this, they go to HR, they ask this, and then they go and walk the floor. Walk your processes from goods receiving all the way around your processes until dispatch. That's what they call the stage 2 audit. If you have findings in the stage 1 audit, in the documentation audit, you must close those findings and send evidence to your certification body before they can come in for stage 2. So everything in stage 1 must be closed, sent back to the certification body. The technical team goes through your findings. They are happy the way you've closed them. And then they book you for a stage 2 audit. Usually a stage 2 audit, again, depending on the size of the business, it can be 2 or more days. It's very rare that a stage 2 audit is 1 day. Usually the first one, the stage 1 audit, where they only look at documentation, that can be 1 day because they know exactly what documents to ask for and what to look for. But operations, it's 2 or more days, depending on the size of the organization. And then they do the stage 2 audit. Again, they send you the reports, they send you your NCs, your non-conformances, you close them, you send the evidence back to them that we have closed this. I have personally sent NCs back to the organization where I am not happy with how they have closed the finding. So they can do that. Maybe they are not happy with the root cause, because now remember, we have to identify a root cause for every finding that was raised. Why did that happen? When we are not happy, we don't even take it further to technical. I reject the findings and I will say in the email, kindly review your findings. This one, the root cause is not correct, or the root cause was not correctly identified, blah, 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 blah. Then you need to go until you have closed everything satisfactorily. Then we send the pack now to SABS to say, okay, SABS, here is your client, there is the stage 2 audit, you can take it to technical team, blah, 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 and do what needs to be done. Then they certify you. Usually with technical, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. Then technical issues a certificate. Again, if technical is not happy with what the auditor, Portia Ngakane, did, they send it back to me. Technical can send back those NCs and say, how did you sign off this NC? This root cause is not right, which is why I don't even send it to technical. If I read it and I find that this one is going to be rejected, I send it back to you and say, please review your root cause. Redo your 5 whys or your fishbone or whatever you use for root cause analysis. Then technical, they do what they do, and then if they are happy, they sign off, and then they issue your certificate. Your certificate, all ISO certificates are valid for 3 years. So if the stage 1 and stage 2 audits were this year, then within 12 months, that's what their standard now, the 17021 standard says, the organization must be audited within 12 months of certification. Okay, sorry, I said 17021. That's another standard. Sorry to confuse you. The 17021 standard is the standard used by certification body. Your SABS, your DQS, your DECRA, or they have a standard that governs them. So that standard says once they have set, that standard says there must be 2 audits initially, stage 1 and stage 2, right? And then within 12 months of stage 2 audit, they must audit you again for the first surveillance audit. And then again for year 2, they must come back again and audit you for the second surveillance audit. And then year 3, when your certificate now expires, remember we said the certificate is valid for 3 years. Also, that is in the 17021 standard. Certificate cannot be valid for more than 3 years. In year 3, a few months before your certificate expires, then they come in and they do a full audit again. So in the first surveillance audit, a year after you were certified, they don't audit everything. They sample. They pick here, they pick here. They'll send you an audit plan to say, we will audit clause 4, clause 5, clause 6. That's first surveillance. And then second surveillance, they can say we'll audit clause 7, clause 8, clause 9, clause 10. And they'll be sampling. But then in the recertification audit, where your certificate is now expiring, then they audit the whole system again. The whole system from clause 4 to clause 10. Remember, I said clause 1, 2, 3 are normative. We don't audit them. We start in clause 4. So they start in clause 4 up to clause 10. And recertification audits are usually in depth, and they are usually more days. So sometimes, again, depending on the size of the company, a recertification audit can take 5 days. So yeah, and then that's the certification process. I forgot to say one thing very important. And then you celebrate once you get your certificate. That's very important because you put in all this hard work. Please, guys, pat yourself here and celebrate. Have a small braai, have a, something small for the company to celebrate your certification. And then your IT will then start to change your things. Your invoices will now have your logo, your certification logo, your letterhead will have your logo, your compliment slips will have your logo. Now you are selling yourselves with those little documents. Your email signatures, they'll have your logo. That's your marketing. To say, hey, by the way, we are now certified by DECRA or by DQS. Here is our certification number. And then you'll also appear on their website, under that company's website, to say how SHEQ was certified on this day, and then they give the certification number as well. But the most important one, once you get certified, please celebrate, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, but it's doable. We've done it for quite a lot of companies. I think now we're sitting at, there's another one next week. I think we're sitting at 17 companies that we have assisted to get certified for different ISO standards. It's beneficial for the business as long as there is the buy-in from management and as long as there is continuous communication. You cannot go wrong with certification. So yeah, that's basically a summary of the certification process.
Yes, that details it very thoroughly. And I'm sure those that are looking to get their organization certified, it will definitely help a lot. Just a follow-up to that. So you had mentioned that normally at a minimum it takes 3 months. But this is now we contact to HWSETA. It will take a minimum of about 3 months for you to come in, write up the procedures, whatever's lacking, or sort out whatever is lacking. So at 3 months, HWSETA will come in and help us. Then normally, how long does it take from when HWSETA has completed the initial stage of getting us ISO ready to us getting certification? Does that process take?
The whole process from implementation to certification, is that the period that you want? Yeah, on average, it can take 6 to 7 months.
So we're saying the community, you should budget a 12-month period, let's say. So the 3 months for HWSETA to assist, and then another 8 months. Or are you saying 8 months in totality? Potentially 8 months.
In 8 months, you can be holding your certificate. But again, it depends with your action as a company. When you have non-conformances, how quickly do you close them? When you have findings from the internal audit, how quickly do you act? Because some companies can take a month, and you're like, how can you sit with a report for the whole month? Because you are now delaying yourself. If the SAPS comes and does stage 1 and there is 4 findings, and you don't close that finding, those 4 findings, you take 2 months to close them, then it affects the whole period, because they cannot move to stage 2 until you have closed your stage 1 finding. So it also depends on how quickly the organization reacts, which is where HWSETA comes in. Once I get that report, I'm on your case, bro. We need to close those findings. I make an appointment. Are you available on Wednesday? Can we sit on Wednesday? Do the action plan, close the findings, send them to the SABS or the certification. I'm on your case because I want the process to move as well. And I know companies, because of capacity or maybe they are too busy or whatever reasons, the report stays on the email and nobody, re-encloses the finding. So it also depends on the company. If everything is done the way it's supposed to be done and on time, within 8 months, we can have our certificate. And I've had companies that had their certificates in 6 months. It depends on how serious you want your ISO certification. Depends on how you do things. When I say company, okay, we are here. I need your 4 health and safety reps. Maybe the company is, 160 people. Then I say, guys, I recommend that we train a health and safety rep here and here and here to cover this area, to cover this area, to cover this area. I don't have control over that as HWSETA. I have advised you that because of the size of your organization, you need to have trained health and safety reps. It's up to you how you do it, how quickly you do it. But if you move with me, then you get your certification. But in 8 months, I know it's too long. You should have had your certificate by then. So we can safely say maximum 8 months, you should have your certificate. Maximum.
No, there you have it, community. So you're looking at a minimum of 6 months, but I meant a maximum of 8 months. But then again, that's dependent on how quickly you will work on the actions. So just under a year to get your certification.
And can I just add this for the community? And it saddens me because this is done by people like me, consultants. If you want to go for ISO certification, whether it's ISO 14001, ISO 45001, you are integrating both of them. Please, community, do not allow people like me to say, no, within 3 months you'll have your certificate. And then they write all the procedures for you. And then they bring 6 files to you and they say, now you can book your audit. They are setting you up for failure, those people. You will not pass your audit, I can tell you now. Because they have not properly implemented. They went to their offices, they wrote the files. Anyone can copy and paste the procedure. Anyone can do that. But they have not walked. In health and safety, there is what we call GAMBA. You walk the process. They haven't done that. And auditors can pick that up. Immediately, we can pick up. From the opening meeting, we can pick up that here, files, these people paid, files were done for them and brought to them, and these files are just being given to the auditors to audit. You will not get your ISO like that. You need to be on the floor. You need to be in the faces of the people. You need to communicate. You need to train the people so that they understand what ISO is all about. You need to help top management to set objectives, because when I audit, I ask for the direction of the business. So what's the strategic direction of this? And when I look at your objectives must speak to that strategy. So people who go out there, and there's a lot of them. And it's sad because I'm also a consultant and I can tell immediately when somebody just compiles processes for you, quick. So please don't be duped by companies like those. They are professional companies. And I'm not the only one. There are other professional companies that will implement your systems in the right way. Do your research. Do your research and do the right thing. Then you will have your certification without any problem. Don't allow consultants to use you and you pay them and then they are nowhere to be found. I have a lot of company clients that did that. And then their phone 6 months down the line, the phones are not being answered. There is no website. There is nothing. They can't get hold of them. It happens. So community, please spread the word out there. No one can write files for you without being in your company. They need to be there. They need to gamba. We call it gamba. You walk the process. They need to speak to the people who are doing whatever they are doing. That's proper implementation.
That's another crucial one, because you don't want as EHS. Now the manager has approached you saying you want to be ISO certified. You then bring in some, they write the files for you, hand them over to you, and then we don't get ISO certification because it was a fly-by-night business. Now management is looking at you as the EHS specialist or manager to say, but dude, we trust, we've now spent 80,000 rand. That money has disappeared. So again, please, let's do our research. Maybe Usis Portia can assist us there. Do ISO consultants, for example, do they need to be registered with a particular body in order to provide these services, or isn't there anything like that currently in place? Or can I ask it this way? Is there a way to verify whether an ISO consultant is reputable, but how can one go about checking to confirm that they are not dealing with a fly-by-night organization?
I strongly recommend for the community to look at certified company. For an example, HWSETA is ISO 9001 certified by the SABS. I cannot run away because you can go to the SABS and report, and my certificate can be revoked. Or, remember, certification is not mandatory, right? Or deal with companies that are registered with some professional body, because then you have somewhere to report if that company disappears, you know? So currently, SAATCA, SAATCA, is one big body that certifies auditors like myself. I am on their database. SIOSH, I'm registered with SIOSH, both myself personally and the business. The business is a corporate member at SIOSH. So check for things like those, professional registration, you know. Even before you start working with that company, ask them, are you registered with any professional body? Can we have certificates of those? Are you ISO certified? Can we have a copy of your certificate? Ask for those things before you even do business with those people. Then that's where you filter out your fly-by-night, because they will not be certified with professional bodies. They will not be certified for ISO. But remember, ISO is not compulsory for consultants, but it's a good thing. How do you sell what you don't have? So do your research before paying these people. It's a lot of money. And I have clients, community. I have clients who have come to me and said, we can't get hold of these people. They just disappeared in the festive season. January, they never came. I have clients like those where I am now cleaning up because they went and appointed. And then I'm like, okay, so you appointed company ABC. Can I see their papers? Are they registered? We didn't get this and that. You must get that information before you start doing business with that company. You can even take it further and ask for their company registration, their CIPC document. But are they a registered company, or are they working from the boot of their car? You can even take it that further. And the person who will be implementing there, is that person qualified? If you are implementing environmental, ask for that person's ISO 14001 papers. If it's ISO 45, ask for health and safety papers. Make sure that you use people who are competent, who have experience, who have references. We take these things for granted, and that's the big step. Do your research before you appoint. Do your research.
Yes, guys, please. We don't want to be dealing with fly-by-night organizations. Mrs. Portia, so the last question.
I thought the last one was the last one.
For those within the EHS space looking to deepen their understanding of these ISO standards, do you have any recommended courses or other forms of training or resources that they can look into to build their knowledge?
There's a lot of training around. I always recommend that you have, especially if you are not in that field. Let's say you want ISO 45001, but you are not in health and safety, because that helps. Being in the health and safety environment makes it easy for you to understand the ISO system. So there's various training courses available. There's various awareness courses available. There's a lot of information on the internet. ISO has a website. So you can go Google ISO 45001. You will get a lot of information on the internet. ISO 14001, you'll get a lot. Start reading for yourself, Start reading and have that basic understanding before you go for training. You know why I'm saying that? Because, and a lot of people have been complaining to me about this, training nowadays is quick. They don't cover everything because they are pushing money, So you find that training that I did in 2007 or 2008, that I did for 5 days, is now 2 days. I was shocked. So get that little understanding for yourself. Just read what ISO is all about, what ISO 14001 entails, there's a lot of information on the internet. And then book. Again, training companies are available all over the internet. But when you book a company, please make sure that they are accredited to issue that training. Because when we audit, you give us a certificate, Litemba CC what Training Academy. We check if Litemba is accredited to offer training. And if they are not accredited, then your training is not valid. So check that the company you are using accredited to offer the training. Do your homework, basically. That's what I'm saying. Do your homework. The nice thing with ISOs, there's a clause, I think it's under support, clause 7. As we are implementing, we can conduct awareness training. That awareness training is part of implementation. So that awareness training does not have to be accredited. But if you go out and you want to train for ISO 14001 implementation, you go to an institution, then please check if that institution is accredited. But part of implementation, there's also awareness that we must do. In our awareness as HWSETA, we cover the whole standard from clause 4 to clause 10. So we train the whole organization what the clauses mean. And then obviously we focus on the EHS department. So do your homework, make sure you are using accredited. Ask the training company, please send me a copy of your accreditation certificate. SHETA is now accrediting ISO training, different SHETAs. The QCTO is now accrediting ISO training. So please do your homework before so that you are not shortchanged by these fly-by-night companies. So please, community, do your homework. Do your homework, especially in health and safety. There is a lot of fly-by-night companies. Before you do anything, ask for these things. Speak to your HR. If it's HR that's booking the training or procurement that's booking the training, they must get all these things before they do business with that company.
Mrs. Portia, thank you very much for joining us and getting this. So definitely a lot of information that the guys can take and implement. So could you please tell the community the services that HWSETA provides and how do we get a hold of you? to take us through the ISO 14001 and ISO 45001 journey and any other ISO standards that the team would be interested in.
Thank you for that. I hope everything I've said so far will be valuable to the community. Yeah, and I hope I've added one or two things that you needed to know. HWSETA is a young company. We started in 2019, but there's been a lot of growth. We specialize in ISO management systems. That's our specialty. We do ISO 9001, 2015. We do ISO 14001, 2015. We implement ISO 45001, 2018. We do ISO 22000, 2018, the latest standard we've just upgraded. And then we do information systems, ISO 27001. So those are the 5 ISOs we are currently busy with. We want to be a Black-owned ISO special company locally. We also do a lot of audits for different organizations. We are in the engineering sector. We are in food space. We are in the paper space. We are in the foundries. Yeah, we work in various sectors or industries. And we do audits for companies, for various companies. We have contracts with companies where we do just their internal audit. They want an external eye to audit them internally. So they've contacted us to conduct their internal audit. Of course, it depends on their size. Some we go there once a year, some once every 6 weeks, some every month to conduct those audits depending on the size of the business. So we do a lot of supplier audits also for companies because companies do not have the capacity internally. So they contract us to audit now their suppliers to see if their suppliers conform to requirements. It's actually a requirement in the ISO standards that suppliers must be evaluated and audited. So we do a lot of that as well. And we do training. We've just been accredited with a SEATA, but yeah, they didn't give us all the accreditations that we wanted. So we're still working on ISO. They excluded ISO in our accreditation. So we're still fighting for that because we did apply for that. But we do most health and safety training, your health and safety rep. We don't do first aid intentionally, but we do some health and safety training. And then we also work with the one and only accreditation body locally, which is SANAS. We do audits for SANAS, where we audit the certification bodies that are accredited by SANAS. We also work with a few certification bodies, your SABSs. We conduct audits for them, whether it's surveillance audits or stage 1 or stage 2 audits. Yeah, we have contracts with, I think, 4 or 5 certification body currently. So that's in summary what HWSETA does. You can contact us. We have a website, www.HWSEQ.com. We are on LinkedIn under my page, Portia Ngakane, Portia, and my surname, Ngakane. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. And then we also just started the HWSETA in page. I believe in dealing with somebody personally, but I was convinced to open a HWSETA page. So I've just started now with the HWSETA page. But the Portia Ngakane page is the most active one on LinkedIn. And then you can also email us. Should you need any information, you can email us on info@HWSEQ.com. Not COZA, but .com. So it's info@HWSEQ.com. Then we will definitely come back to you within 24 hours of that email. Thank you.
Thank you again for taking the time out of your Sunday.
Perfect. No, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I'm so impressed that you are doing this. I'm really, really impressed. Keep it up. Okay. Thank you very much, Baba, and thanks for the opportunity. And thank you so much.
Thank you.